Welcome, everybody. My name is Kathy Scott. I'm with NextTrust BillFlash. I want to thank you all for joining us for our podcast. We're really excited to have Dan Loch and Stephanie Cremeans here to run us through the next 15 minutes on how Stephanie, I'll let you, how growth almost killed a practice. Dan is with sales and marketing for EZClaim. Stephanie is with RCM Insight. She just recently did an amazing podcast for us, which I will make sure that each of you get if you haven't heard it or seen the deck. Stephanie has served in various roles in medical billing and coding, in revenue management, cycle management. She's a consultant and auditor, a biller and a coder, and her presentation, her webinar for us was one of the most powerful that we've had. We've continued to have a lot of people asking for a follow-up, the recording, and the deck. She will be doing more for us, I hope.
Absolutely.
Dan Loch has over 10 years. Oh, actually, Dan has graciously provided me with a little bit of an update. He spent over 10 years in the healthcare industry and 20 years in IT. He has a degree in engineering, and I know that he has incredible insight into processes, which is what we're going to be talking about today. I know we're very short on time. We wanted to make sure that we respect yours. So right at this moment, I'm going to mute myself and turn this over to Dan and Stephanie to go ahead and get started with our podcast. And thank you again for participating.
Awesome. So Dan, I'll start unless you wanted to take the floor first.
No, go ahead. Thank you.
Right. Yeah, so we did our webinar last week up talking about key performance indicators and how they can help your practice stay afloat and spot problems before they are affecting your bottom line. And so today we were going to follow up with a story. During the presentation, I talked about one of the data points being like a favorite and how it helped me personally, and how this particular piece of information almost killed a practice. So this practice had initially been set up. They had 12 providers. It was a large, thriving practice. They saw patients in the building. They saw patients for rounds at the hospital. They did procedures at the hospital. They did diagnostic testing both at the hospital and this really beautiful clinic that they had. And everything was going along great. And then all of a sudden they had the typical partner split. So there were 8 owners. They had a parting of ways. 4 owners left and left the practice with 4 owners and 4 employed physicians. So now they're down to being this 8 provider practice. And everything that had changed, everything inside the office other than the provider split stayed the same. So they didn't do any layoffs, which I know we don't like to lay employees off and things like that, but they still had staff that was supporting 12, now supporting 8. They stayed in the same office. All of the expenses stayed as they were, and money started to dwindle. They lost some of their revenue makers. So while they were busy running around trying to figure out what billing was doing wrong, they created this new role for a billing manager and updated some workflows and got some things streamlined in the billing department. But it still wasn't bringing in the income that they were looking for. So fast forward a little bit, during this next 8 to 12 months, they ended up losing more of their providers. Now they were down to a 5 provider practice in the same building, same structure, same employee ratio or employee staffing for 5 providers that they had had previously for 12. And the finger continually kept pointing back to the billing department, and it became really a billing versus everybody kind of atmosphere. And the rate that we looked at, the data analytic that we finally had to pull to show them that the problem was bigger than the billing department was the net collections rate. And this net collections rate is awesome for really figuring out whether your problems are related to your billing department or to something else within the practice. We found that the billing department was collecting 93% of all of the collectible money, which means that they had some room for improvement, but they should not be at a point where providers are not taking paychecks and bills aren't getting paid when you're collecting 93% of what's collectible. So this is where this metric became really important to me, being able to see that we were making improvements and there was still some room to improve, but it was also able for me to take it back to the providers and say, yep, billing needs to do a little bit of work, but there's some work to be done on your part as well. And in this particular practice, they really didn't want to hear that. They really didn't want to move forward with that. And at that point, this particular data point showed me that it was time to move on and find a new role, because things that were out of my control were not going to change. So that's kind of where we came with this. And this practice really dug their heels in. And this particular data point was showing them very clearly that there were other issues that needed to be addressed, not just within the billing department. So some of the things that we recommended looking at were expenditures. And one of them that really would have been an easy fix, they had just purchased a really expensive all-in-one EMR and PM system. And as they're dwindling into this smaller practice, they may have really benefited by moving to something that is two separate systems, so an EMR and a PM system. So you can still get efficiency working with these two programs at a much lower rate, a much lower cost when you can integrate them. And Dan, I know you have some light to shed on pieces like that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of my things is that I thought was important that you talked about was you looked at the billing and what the billing department was doing. So you wanted to make sure that your house was in order before you looked elsewhere. It's very interesting. One of the things that when I was doing some consulting is you always recommend, or I always thought it was important, at least for any organization, regardless of the industry, to do a yearly review from a process perspective, because things change. You grow, you shrink, or quite frankly, maybe you don't change your size, but some of the stuff that you're doing changes. And one of the things that I think makes sense is, as an organization, you should always take a look at your processes when you have major changes, not just on a yearly basis. And I think that would have helped them here.
Absolutely.
And then from the system side, absolutely, there are over 400 PM systems that are on the market. So there are a lot of them that are very specialized in a particular market or specialty and only work for those and are standalone. There's ones that are out there that are expensive, that are all-in-ones, that you also get the EMR, like the one that you mentioned. And then there's smaller ones that can work with, that are just easy to use, can be very simple or very complex, depending on how you want to use it and to what extent from a reporting perspective, that work with almost any EMR out there, but can save you a lot of money.
For sure, definitely. Yeah, and this practice in particular, they were one that was just grasping at straws left and right to try to save their business. I know when I left, the 4 owners that were there had not taken a check for nearly a year when I left. But they didn't want to really be open to the ideas of change. They had just changed to this new big all-inclusive EMR PM system, so they didn't want to hear anything about, changing their program again. And I get that that's hard especially on the EMR side for the providers to change EMR systems, but they were allowing that to kind of block them from considering changes.
And that's one of the nice things EZClaim offers is when you do go through a change and you do change systems, as you said, any system, whether it's an EMR or PM, it's hard. Is the processes that we've come up with to onboard somebody to hold their hand and bring them through it so they're not doing it on their own.
Right. Yep, for sure.
I was going to just, we have a few more minutes left, and I was going to just jump in. One of the things that really was interesting to me, and I wanted to just get you to talk about it really quickly, is you had said that sometimes the answer to the billing problems are already right there in
Yes.
the brain of the biller,
Yes.
but no one's listening. And if
Yeah.
you could talk about that.
Yeah, so the big thing that I've seen both from being in the trenches and then working as a consultant is that we tend to see a lot of billing department versus the providers, or billing department versus the schedulers. And the billers kind of take a bad rap. They kind of take the brunt of everybody's anger. And I really think that's because all of the errors in the billing department, or all the errors in the practice, are found in billing, because we're getting rejections, we're getting denials, we're, trying to code for services, but there's not enough documentation, and we're trying to keep your documentation audit proof. And unfortunately, that seems to cause a lot of rift between the billing department and everybody else. And I think in the medical field, I think that's an area that we can really do better, is learning to really not take that feedback so personal, and be able to just understand we're all in this for the same thing. We're trying to work the system and get through all of the red tape that we need to get through to be able to get payments and reimbursement for the services you've provided. So really working on strengthening those relationships between all of the other departments and the billers, I think, is just a really, really important idea.
And then this lastly, what you had said is that sometimes you're an interpreter, which is just basically.
Yeah. Yeah. So working as a consultant, I found many times that when I would go in, I would talk to the providers. They would tell me their side of the story. And then I would go and talk to the billers and hear their side of the story. And usually I can tell you the answer within having those two conversations. And the problem, more so than being that nobody could fix it, was that nobody would budge. Everybody heard their side and didn't want to listen to the other side. So it kind of comes back again to really strengthening those relationships and being able to have that healthy respect. As a biller or as a billing consultant, I would not come in a room and tell you how to treat a patient. I would watch and learn and observe and see how that applies to the billing and coding. And likewise, I think providers need to remember that you've hired billers because they're experts in their field. So I think it's really important to take advantage of what you've brought into your office.
Well,
that's very important, to really sit and listen. I think that's the important piece that a lot of consultants, if they're good, that's the most important part, is listen and understand the as is and the goal, and then come up with the plan in the middle. A lot of times people forget to understand where you're at today.
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's an engineer's mind. I will say it has a part with EZClaim. I would definitely say that's one of the strongest points that you make, and really you live it. EZClaim lives it. I mean, you all have been really just so great to us, and I know that Dan has been so great to me. I think that's so important, especially now as things are changing with pay.
Absolutely. The world's constantly changing. And as you mentioned, pay is a big one that's out there. People don't want to pay in cash. They want things easier. They want it right to their phone. They want it delivered differently. Things happen quicker. And EZClaim's keeping up with the times. And For example, that's why one of the things we added was EZClaim Pay. We can take credit cards right in the system now. Now you don't even need a separate merchant services. We see that things are going to continue to change and grow, and you will see within the next 12 months an EZClaim Online product as well, on top of the cloud product that we already have. So we're making sure we keep up with the technologies, and we practice what we preach by looking at what we have and how we can improve and get better and help our customers that are almost like family to us to get better and do things easier and more efficiently.
Hence the name.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, thank you very much. Thanks everyone for joining us. I want to thank Angie Carter, our producer. Thanks to Dan and EZClaim and Stephanie and RCM Insights. Do you want to give your website real quick if anybody wants to get in touch? And...
Yeah, of course. If anybody is looking, my website is rcminsight.com.
All right, and we are EZClaim, so it's a letter E, letter Z, the word claim.com. And Kathy, thank you for putting this together. We appreciate it.
Yeah,
thank
thanks
you
for
so
having
much.
us.
Thanks everyone. Have a great day. Have a great Friday the 13th.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.